On the third night of the Chinese New Year, the Jiangqing Third People's Hospital was quiet and peaceful. As Timothy, the father, pounded on the duty room door like a madman, Haley was downstairs in the garden with Skylar, exploring the newly bought fireworks. "Should we go up and see? There's another family causing trouble." "What's there to see?" Skylar was still searching for the core of the firework tube, wrapped in a thin layer of red paper that she couldn't unravel. But Haley felt uneasy. Tonight, her mother was on duty, and she was the head nurse of the internal medicine department. "Let's go and take a look." "Fine, but these fireworks, forget it, I'll hide them under the holly. I'll come down and set them off later." Haley wasn't interested in fireworks, she was just used to accompanying Skylar in whatever she found interesting. Living in adjacent apartments and being classmates, they had been inseparable since childhood. The elevator door opened, turning into the corridor. Haley saw a familiar figure rushing into the duty room. Following that, there was the sound of something being thrown to the ground. Haley ran up, and what she saw left her mind blank. On the narrow bed in the duty room, her father was pulling her mother's hair, slamming her forehead against the wall. Her mother, who had been lifted up, hadn't even finished getting dressed. The father was furious, while the mother was like a puddle of mud, completely defenseless. Surprisingly, it was Skylar who rushed forward first. She tried to pull Timothy away, but in his rage, he paid no attention to her. Not content with hitting her mother's head, he violently threw her against the wall. In her mother's screams, he reached for her neck with both hands. From beside a metal cabinet, Nicholas, Skylar's father, suddenly emerged. He fastened his belt buckle, pulled down the sweater hanging around his waist, and also joined the fray. But he moved slowly and seemed indifferent. Watching her mother's face turn red and her father glaring without relenting, Haley burst into tears. However, apart from crying, she couldn't react. Again, it was Skylar. She stood in front of Nicholas, grabbed Timothy's big arm, and bit down hard. With a scream, Timothy finally jumped off the bed. He released his wife's neck, then pushed Skylar onto the nearby metal cabinet. Patients and family members gradually gathered, and duty nurses rushed over. Timothy rubbed his sore waist, glaring menacingly at his wife, Ariel. A spitball flew out of his mouth like a bullet, landing in Ariel's hair. Facing the onlookers, Nicholas looked back at Ariel, then casually left. Timothy alternated between cursing, shameful, and unscrupulous, but he never uttered a third idiom. Skylar tore off a piece of tissue to wipe the spit from Ariel's hair, while Haley, tears streaming down her face, did not step into the room. Amidst the whispers and pointing behind them, a cluster of fireworks blossomed outside the window like summer chrysanthemums, filling the entire pane of glass. About her parents' affairs, Haley always feels awkward. Face to face or behind her back, gossip and accusations, like invisible arrows, always seem to strike her from somewhere unknown. Besides feeling sad, she has no way to resist. On the contrary, Skylar remains indifferent. When the name Nicholas passes by her ears, she treats it like an unrelated character on TV. "If your mom would marry my dad, that would be great," Skylar mentioned once. "Then we'd be sisters." Haley added naturally. "No, I already have a mom." At that time, Haley didn't quite understand Skylar's feelings, she just felt disappointed that Skylar put her mother before herself. Having parents was always considered a matter of course, but it didn't bring her any happiness. Raised by her grandmother along with her cousin, she was often overlooked due to her grandmother's preference for males. Returning to her parents during elementary school, she felt alienated from them. Their relationship was not good, and she felt uncomfortable being caught in the middle. As she grew into her teens, Skylar became her closest person. Compared to Haley's quiet reserve, Skylar's proactive enthusiasm was a trait she envied to death but dared not admit. In Skylar's world, there seemed to be no distance between people. Things that Haley wouldn't dare to do, Skylar would accomplish with just a few words. She could chat and be friendly with hospital staff, ask patients' families for snacks, fight with Owen, play chess with the gatekeeper, and even ask Haley's mother to cook sweet and sour ribs for her. Nicholas, being the hospital director, had many willing to care for Skylar, but she chose Ariel. Their relationship was established even before Haley came to the city. Perhaps because Skylar was too proactive, her relationship with Ariel seemed even closer than Haley's. She would hug Ariel's neck and say, "Ariel auntie, I really like you." And she would repeatedly say, "It would be great if you were my mom." Jealousy pricked Haley like a thorn, but she couldn't reject Skylar's warmth like her mother. If Skylar came to her house, she would be happier than when her mother visited. But if Skylar got too close to her mother, she would feel very sad. It seemed like her mother sensed it. She unintentionally said, "I left you at Grandma's when you were little, and it was hard to see you. Skylar is the same age as you, and both of you don't have a mom around. When I see her, it's like seeing you." When her mother said those words, her eyes were full of helplessness but also sincerity. With her mother's words, Haley felt less uncomfortable, as if her mother's kindness to Skylar became a way of expressing love to her. Ariel had mentioned divorce, but Timothy refused to agree. At home, he humiliated Ariel every day, cursing at her and even Nicholas, but when he encountered Nicholas outside, he remained respectful. Nicholas, unable to endure, transferred him to a well-paying logistics position. Surprisingly, Timothy considered it an honor. Timothy hated Nicholas, but due to the director's prestige, he swallowed his hatred. Yet, there were other men who dared to do what Timothy didn't. 2 months later, Nicholas got involved with a female doctor from a lower-level hospital, got beaten by the doctor's fiancée, and was reported to the health department. With a tarnished personal life and pressure from various sides, Nicholas decided to resign. So, that summer, Nicholas was set to leave with Skylar. Skylar ran home in tears, bypassing Haley watching TV in the living room, and went straight to Ariel's bedroom. On TV, Shanghai Beach was playing. Skylar arrived, and Haley felt the TV was no longer interesting. She put down the remote and followed them. Skylar sat on the bedside, crying in Ariel's arms. "Aunt Ariel, I don't want to leave." Mother stroked her hair, also wiping away tears. "Where are you going?" Haley still leaned against the door frame. "Shanghai." Skylar looked up, her 2 eyes swollen like peaches. "Is it far?" "By train, 6 hours. There's a family company that wants my dad there, and the income is even higher than when he was the director." "How much higher?" "Haley," Mother interrupted her, "do kids talk so much?" Haley took a step back, as if she was the outsider in this family. While Chow Yun-fat on TV delivered a long string of lines, Haley didn't hear any of it, but suddenly, she stopped feeling sorry for Skylar. Going to Shanghai was such a joyful thing. When Skylar left, it was still summer vacation. That day, it didn't rain, but the sky was gloomy, making the early morning look like evening. Many people from the hospital went to see off Nicholas and his daughter, but due to the scandal, Haley's family did not go. Mother came back from the night shift, still cleaning, cooking breakfast, and then went to sleep. But not long after, Father started cursing at her again. First, he criticized her for not filtering the soy milk properly, then said the vegetables were too salty. Unfailingly, he brought up Nicholas. He said Nicholas was gone, and she should give up, that she had a brief affair with Nicholas, and now she couldn't even secure a good department, that Nicholas, in the big city of Shanghai, would have countless women, and she would be forgotten in an instant. During that period, Father found various ways to berate Mother, as if the more sophisticated his insults, the more dignity he could gain. And Mother seemed to understand his grievances, never responding. She silently cleaned, did laundry, cooked, occasionally forced by Father's questioning. She would calmly say, "As long as you can change your attitude, whatever you say is fine with me." After saying that, she went back to work. It took Haley a long time to understand what Skylar's departure meant to her. No one accompanied her to school, shared roadside snacks, helped each other with homework, or spent long and lonely weekends and holidays together anymore. Skylar called after more than a month. She said her father was busy with work and her enrollment, and the phone was only recently installed. She had called 2 days ago, but no one answered. She talked about the prosperity of Shanghai, the high cost of living, the laptop her father bought for her, and the new friends she made at school. "Hello, are you still there?" "I'm here." Haley wiped away tears. "Why aren't you saying anything?" "My dad called me." "Write down my number, ask Aunt Ariel to call me when she finishes work." "I got it." After hanging up the phone, Haley went back to her room and burst into tears. She knew Skylar must be doing well, and she hoped she was, but when her doing well was confirmed through the phone, she felt a sense of loneliness as if she had been betrayed. The wind chimes they made together still hung in the corner, now covered in dust. Suddenly, she remembered the despair she felt when her mother left her grandmother's house when she was a child. She felt like a weed thrown into the wind, struggling but unable to grasp anything. Now, the withered grass was about to dry up. For those few years, they had stayed in touch through letters, calls, and the internet. They had grown taller, their appearances changed, and occasionally, they talked about boys with less innocence than before. But from initially having endless conversations to later struggling to find topics, and finally feeling exhausted, their friendship had changed. Haley could never understand life in Shanghai, the joy of international travel that Skylar experienced. Skylar, in turn, lost interest in the unchanging small town. The vast differences spread at both ends, but a thread always connected them, and neither could let go. During those years, Skylar fell in love with painting. Her father hired a teacher for her, spent a lot of money to promote her, and finally secured her a spot as an art major with a university scholarship. Before the college entrance exam, Skylar extended an invitation to Haley. "You must come to Shanghai, we can be together again. It's best to bring Auntie here, let her retire. With her qualifications, she can easily find a good job in a private hospital in Shanghai. I don't know if I can pass the exam. Even if you don't get into Fudan or Jiaotong University, there are other universities. As long as you're willing, there's always a way." Haley didn't know if Skylar's invitation was sincere. After all, they hadn't seen each other for many years. They could still recognize each other in photos and videos, but she didn't know how to define their relationship. Nevertheless, Haley followed through. To go to Shanghai for the exam, she worked even harder. After the college entrance exam, she rarely made decisions for herself and applied to Shanghai University. Her mother's expression was complicated, and her father, with a smirk, asked, "Are you going to find Skylar?" Haley nervously replied, "It's recommended by the teacher, they say this major is good." A week later, Timothy discovered that Ariel had filed for divorce in court. Suppressed for over a year, their fights had escalated into chaos, and this time, Timothy dragged Haley into it. He claimed that the mother and daughter had conspired to kick him out so Ariel could go to Shanghai to find Nicholas. He insulted his wife, calling her a cheap woman, and Haley, a scheming wolf. Facing her father, whose features contorted in rage, Haley, like before, could only cry without saying anything. The day Haley received her acceptance letter, the family of three, for once, had a hot pot meal together. Although her father's words were sarcastic, it was evident that he was happy. Surprisingly, her mother was calm, occasionally smiling as if it were all for Haley. Perhaps it was her age, showing delicacy and warmth that had been absent for a long time. Breaking tradition, her mother touched Haley's face, advising her that she would have to rely on herself once she left. That night, her mother claimed to be on duty for a colleague and went back to the hospital. In reality, she checked into a nearby guest house, then ingested a lethal dose of sleeping pills. Nicholas brought Skylar back for their mother's funeral. After many years, Skylar cried bitterly while hugging Haley. Skylar seemed like the one who had lost her mother, in contrast to the numb Haley. Nicholas was different from before. He had become a well-known entrepreneur, exuding an air of elegance that didn't fit the small town. He laid flowers for Ariel, bowed in front of the memorial, stared at the deceased's photo for a long time, and his eyes turned red. Timothy was even more submissive than before, but Nicholas didn't spare him a glance. He asked Haley some questions and handed her a thick stack of money as a gift. Before leaving, he told her to study well in Shanghai and that she could always come to him if she faced any difficulties. On the morning Skylar and her father left, Haley went to the hotel to see them off. It was the first time she experienced a buffet breakfast in a five-star hotel. Despite the elegant and luxurious environment, and many foods she had never seen before, she had no appetite. Sunlight spilled onto the table, each with a cup of coffee, and both had swollen eyes. "I thought about picking you up at the train station when you come to Shanghai to study, never thought I'd be back." Skylar wiped her nose, "But I'll still pick you up, send me a message when you book your ticket." Haley nodded. "I've already asked Auntie to prepare a room for you, next to mine. You can come home every weekend." Skylar dyed her hair, got double eyelid surgery, and had become a different person, making her warmth seem unfamiliar. "No need, it's too much trouble." "Not at all, I'll have the driver pick you up." "But, you don't need to be so good to me." Skylar lowered her head, sunlight on her cheeks, the curvature of her cheekbones the same as in the past. "I promised Aunt Ariel to take good care of you." Haley was confused. Her mother's relationship with Skylar seemed unrelated to her. "Really? I should have thought that she had depression. I advised her to go to the psychological clinic, but she didn't listen. We don't have a psychiatric department in our hospital. I mean, my mom's hospital." "Really? I thought they should have one after so many years." "Well, forget it, talking about this makes everyone sad." "When did she say she wanted you to take care of me?" "Always. She said you were too introverted, and you might face difficulties in society. I said I would look after you." She often said similar things. As Skylar spoke, her gaze shifted to the corner of the restaurant. A young woman in a suit jacket walked over slowly. "Your father is waiting for you in the car, and your luggage has already been loaded." Skylar glanced at her watch and replied, "Got it." "Hurry, we have a long way to go," Haley said. Skylar nodded. "Call me as soon as you arrive in Shanghai." "Okay." Haley remained seated. She didn't want to see Nicholas. Skylar left the restaurant with the young woman. Finally, Haley could take a sip of the coffee on the table. The sunlight was more glaring than before, but the coffee was bitter and cold. Before leaving, Timothy kept complaining, criticizing the high cost of living in Shanghai and the stifling heat. Haley argued with him, and they decided that he wouldn't accompany her. Her father entrusted Haley to Owen, who had been raised in the same courtyard. Taking care of each other was only natural for children who grew up together. As an adult, Owen was no longer the annoying devil from childhood. He had become a talented and courteous young man. He bought the ticket, helped with the luggage, and took care of her throughout the journey. He first escorted her to the China University of Political Science and Law, helped her register, found the dormitory, and left only when it was already dark. Haley didn't call Skylar until the weekend morning when Skylar called, saying she was already at the gate of the China University of Political Science and Law. A black sports car parked on the roadside, and she jumped out while adjusting her high heels. Wearing a green mini skirt so short that it almost revealed her underwear and a dark green checkered strapless top, she looked like a hopping grasshopper. "I deserve to die. I was supposed to come back early, but a few friends insisted on stopping in Hong Kong for a few days, delaying everything. You must have called me a lot, right?" "Not really, I've been busy with the start of the school year." "Get in the car first. You have no idea how much food I prepared today. I have plans for today, and there's something else." "You didn't mention it beforehand." Haley sounded a bit flustered. "What else is there?" "I made an appointment with Owen. I still need a few textbooks, and he said he knows a few second-hand bookstores we can check out." "Hey, just call him to come along, you two grew up together." "Where is he? Should we pick him up, or let him come on his own?" "Forget it, what's his number? I'll call him directly." Skylar lived in Suehu No. 1, with a living room that could rival a hospital outpatient hall. The furniture and appliances were meticulously arranged, and there were vases and speakers emitting a delicate glow. The air carried a faint fragrance, reminiscent of what Haley had smelled in a five-star hotel. When wealth struck in such a concrete form for the first time, Owen seemed much more relaxed compared to Haley's restraint. He even bluntly asked how much the house cost and how much the decoration was, suggesting that living alone in such a large house with her father was extravagant. "My dad bought it early, and it wasn't as expensive back then. I know about the decoration, around 1.8 million, excluding furniture and appliances. My dad doesn't live here, he lives with his girlfriend. I hate that woman, so I live alone now." Skylar answered lazily, as if life was indifferent to her, and she hadn't fully immersed herself in it. Skylar took Haley to see her room, with Owen following. The room wasn't small, with pale pink beds and curtains, and even the stuffed animals on the bed were pink. "You like pink, so I specifically chose pink items." Skylar pointed to the computer on the table. "This is a computer. I bought two at once, one for each of us. Hurry up and study it, teach me how to use it. This is the latest model from Apple, costing over 20,000 yuan. Owen approached, and his eyes lit up. "A friend recommended this model, I don't remember how much it cost." "You're really good to Haley. What's so good about it?" "She used to be good to me. I sprained my foot during a PE class, and she carried me back after school, even taking me directly to the orthopedic department. I hadn't memorized a poem, got punished to write it 30 times, and she copied it for me in my handwriting. I loved the ribs that Aunt Ariel stewed, and she pestered my mom to stew ribs every weekend. Anyway, let's not talk about this, it will only make everyone sad again." As memories flooded back, Haley also recalled Skylar's past kindness towards her. Skylar always shared her allowance. She was reluctant to use her own erasers but willingly let Haley use them. Whenever a boy spoke loudly to Haley, Skylar would rush over to stand in front of her. Haley remembered many details, but she couldn't bring herself to say them out loud. Suddenly, Skylar reached up to touch Haley's face, and there was a casualness reminiscent of their time together in childhood. "You two used to be inseparable, like conjoined twins. Why are you still so close after so many years?" Owen asked. "Back then, you used to bully us a lot. I remember." Skylar laughed, raising her fist, and Owen laughed, pleading for mercy. Haley watched indifferently, as if the joy of this reunion had nothing to do with her. The chef's skills were excellent, and the three of them enjoyed the meal. When the mood lifted, Skylar opened a bottle of red wine. Skylar seemed to be quite adept at drinking now, discussing how to appreciate and taste wine with confidence. Owen listened attentively, even wanting to jot down notes. Haley let the information go in one ear and out the other, taking a sip of wine and trying not to make her face look too awkward. When Aunt Ariel came to Shanghai, my dad wanted to keep her, even considered marrying her. But unfortunately, my dad's ex-girlfriend caused a scene, and Aunt Ariel left in a fit of anger. Skylar swung her wine glass, her expression serious. My mom came to Shanghai? When? Haley asked, feeling a bit foolish. During my sophomore year of high school, that winter. At that time, I was suffering from depression, and my dad begged Aunt Ariel to come to Shanghai to accompany me. Haley recalled it. At that time, her mother had said she was undergoing a 2-month training at the provincial hospital, which turned out to be a lie. They're not the same kind of people, Owen commented. Skylar stared at him for a while, a hint of anger in her eyes. What do you understand? Your dad changes girlfriends faster than he changes clothes. Not a single one is serious. But what about Haley's mom? Just because of her relationship with your dad, she couldn't lift her head for half her life. Half a cup of wine spilled on Owen's face. Dew-like droplets of light red hung from his forehead to his nose, even on his eyelashes. Looking at his sulking face, Haley found him strangely handsome. Owen wanted to leave, and Skylar didn't stop him. Haley was caught in the middle, looking at Owen and then at Skylar, not knowing what to do for a moment. Isn't it enough for your dad to harm your mom? Why are you still staying here? Owen stared at Haley while changing his shoes. Haley went to the sofa to find her backpack but was pulled by Skylar. Don't go. Just like in the past, Haley stood by Skylar's side. Skylar babbled and drank a few more cups until her cheeks turned crimson, and her eyes also showed a hint of sadness. Her makeup had not faded yet, and compared to the last time she returned to Jiangcheng to mourn her mother, she looked even better now. She wasn't as pretty as Haley when they were kids, but now it was the other way around. For a moment, Haley felt jealous again. From the high-end cosmetics on her face to this mansion built with golden bricks, their lives had long been worlds apart. What was she still expecting? My dad is just a scumbag, right? My dad killed Aunt Ariel. Skylar leaned against Haley's back, her voice choking. But what could Haley say? If her dad couldn't even dare to scold the former dean loudly, how could she have the ability to scold a well-known businessman? Maybe, I'm the real scum. If I didn't praise Aunt Ariel for being gentle and beautiful in front of my dad all the time, if I didn't keep pestering my dad to let Aunt Ariel be my mother, he wouldn't have noticed her, and she wouldn't have been provoked. My mom didn't commit suicide because of your dad, she was completely disappointed with life. She probably wanted to commit suicide early on but endured it until I got into college. She had depression herself, yet she came to take care of me. Skylar wiped away her tears. But what about you? Are you okay? I listened to her, obediently saw a doctor, obediently took medication. My dad now lets me have my way, it's not bad. But why did you get depressed? Skylar sat up straight, placing a pillow in front of her chest. I went to Canada in my freshman year, you remember that, right? My English was so bad I couldn't adapt. I couldn't get along with my host family, had no friends. I wanted to come back, but my dad didn't want to. In short, it was a mess, everything went wrong. I tossed myself around and ended up with depression. At the worst, I refused to go out, cried at home every day for no reason, just crying. Why didn't you mention these things to me? I've always protected you. If I fall, what will you do? Whether it was the alcohol or her words, Haley felt her cheeks burning. She leaned gently against Skylar's shoulder. The unfamiliar scent of perfume made her feel strangely familiar. Haley couldn't pinpoint when she started to have feelings for Owen, even she couldn't figure it out herself. It might have been during the journey to Shanghai, or when he helped her buy textbooks. Perhaps it was the frequent mention of Owen in her father's phone calls. If you have any issues, consult with Owen. Owen didn't reject Haley's company, she managed to arrange meetings with him, and despite his often indifferent and distracted demeanor, he would earnestly give advice when she shared her concerns. After the day Owen angrily left, Haley refrained from bringing up Skylar much. She was always cautious, especially in front of Owen. Surprisingly, in late October, when Skylar hosted a birthday party at home, Owen arrived earlier than Haley. Skylar was elegantly dressed. Haley learned from her conversations with friends that her pink dress was designer, and her necklace cost over $300,000. Haley, in her hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, was the best outfit she could come up with. She felt embarrassed amidst the glamorous crowd. In contrast, Owen seemed at ease. He held a glass of wine, engaging in lively conversations with strangers, effortlessly handling attention from girls. Skylar, surrounded by friends, seemed to forget about Haley. Haley had hoped that with Owen around, things wouldn't be too awkward. However, Owen was busy socializing, leaving Haley with no chance to join in. She decided to retreat to the bedroom and check her phone. She had never stayed in this bedroom before. At the beginning of the school year, everything was still unfamiliar, and many things were yet to be sorted out, so she hadn't thought about it. Skylar seemed to be in the same situation. She had mentioned going to the school to pick up Haley several times, but they had only met twice. Haley wandered around, feeling a mix of jealousy for Skylar's material possessions and gratitude for their friendship. She looked up at the artistically designed pendant light, its light enveloping her face like silk. Yet, she heard a clear voice in her heart saying, "You don't belong here." Haley lowered her head and found a guy sitting on the computer chair, grinning at her. He was dressed in a hip-hop style, with a few messy braids, exuding a somewhat carefree vibe. "Hey, what's your name? I've been watching you for a while." Haley took a step back, blushing before she could say anything. "What's wrong? Don't be scared. I find you quite different, quite interesting." Haley had never been approached like this before, and for a moment, she didn't know how to respond. She stood against the wall, wishing she could disappear. "Hey, did I scare you?" The guy stood up, still grinning. "By the way, who are you to Skylar?" "I'm her friend." "Why haven't I seen you before?" The guy blinked, taking a step closer. "I know, you're a friend from her hometown, right? She mentioned something about you." "Zhang Songqi, what the hell are you doing?" Skylar shouted, rushing in. "Why are you bothering her? Do you think you can give me advice with those vague patterns on your intestines? Don't mess with my friend. Do you hear me?" Skylar hugged Haley. "Hey, what pattern do I have on my intestines? Are you an artist? Can you paint for me?" Skylar burst into laughter. "Forget it. My childhood friend is here. Don't make me spill out your embarrassing stuff." "Pa, if we talk about embarrassing things, we're even. Today is your birthday, I'll give you a break. We'll settle accounts later." "You're so petty." Skylar kicked him, but he caught her ankle. "Get lost." Skylar laughed and scolded him, signaling for him to let go. The guy released her with a smile. He clapped his hands and was about to leave when Skylar stopped him. "Hey, I'm telling you the truth. She's like a sister to me, just like my real sister. Don't even think about her. Got it?" "Got it. Just chatting with her a bit. I know she's your childhood friend, not my type anyway." Skylar hadn't had time to explain when someone outside called, saying Nicholas had arrived. Skylar embraced Haley and went out. In her ear, she casually said, "It's been too busy today, I didn't have time for you, sorry." Haley squeezed out a smile, feeling warmed by her words. Nicholas stood in the living room, with several well-dressed staff accompanying him. He exuded an imposing aura, and Skylar's friends all became obedient, forming a circle around Nicholas. The DJ turned off the music. Skylar rushed over and hugged her father, and Nicholas also embraced her under his shoulder. Only those truly cherished could have the radiant smile like Skylar's. Haley found herself jealous once again. Today is Skylar's birthday, so let me wish my precious daughter a happy birthday. She kept clamoring about buying a new car for half a month, and a few days ago, I finally bought it for her. Consider it my birthday gift to her, and I'm sure you've all seen it on her social media. Everyone laughed. Once again, thank you all for coming to celebrate Skylar's birthday today, and thank you for your usual care for her. Nicholas's gaze scanned the crowd and landed on Haley. Haley is here too. Fantastic. Nicholas's words shifted everyone's attention to Haley. Haley felt elevated, a surreal sensation of floating in the air, while those glances felt like fiery balls, making her uncomfortably warm. "I happened to be passing by and came to wish Skylar a happy birthday. I have other matters to attend to, so I won't disturb you all. I don't want to be an old man here and ruin your fun." Under the crowd's escort, Nicholas left. Before he walked out completely, he suddenly turned back, his gaze searching the crowd until it stopped on Haley. "Haley," he beckoned, like an elder. The crowd immediately made way for Haley. "Come here, I'd like to have a word with you," he said. "What's going on?" Skylar asked. "It's too noisy here, let's talk in my car." The car had a faint fragrance, a blend of leather and something unfamiliar yet intriguing. Haley sat in the back seat beside Nicholas, while Skylar smoked outside, chatting with Nicholas's assistants. Nicholas's face still resembled the one of the former dean, gentle and friendly, but time had transformed Haley's perception. Money had endowed Nicholas with dignity but also concealed his sins. Haley had once hated him genuinely when her mother couldn't lift her head for years due to their affair. However, at this moment, the hatred seemed to have diminished. Whether it was due to her bond with Skylar or the immense power he possessed as a big shot, Haley couldn't clearly articulate. "Are you adjusting well to Shanghai?" "Quite well." Suddenly, Nicholas took out a card from his pocket and placed it on the armrest. "Take this card, it has a monthly limit of 100,000. The password is your mother's birthday." Haley was surprised, not expecting him to be so direct. "I know your dad, penny pinching, complains even when he loses $20 playing cards for days. At your age, it's time to spend, don't deprive yourself." "Uncle, thank you, but I can't accept it." Nicholas chuckled, "You're just like your mom." "Since my mom won't take it, I shouldn't either." "That's different. Your mom is strong-willed, refusing my money just to keep me indebted to her forever. But you're different. You and Skylar grew up together, I see you two as the same." Though his words might be a bit insincere, considering Skylar was his biological daughter, Haley understood the sentiment. "Consider it my way of returning the favor. What your mom did for Skylar, I can't match. I can only be lazy and show some goodwill by giving money. If you don't take it, it'll make me feel awkward." "Does Skylar know?" Haley looked out the window. Nicholas smiled, "She knows. I originally asked her to give it to you, but she insisted I give it to you in person, saying it would show sincerity." After a brief hesitation, Haley clutched the card in her hand. Her father's allowance indeed made her life difficult, and perhaps keeping this card as a backup wouldn't hurt. Suddenly, an assistant knocked on the car window. "Mr. Nicholas, Mr. Zhang is urging." "I got it." Nicholas looked at Haley again. "All right, go upstairs and enjoy yourself. Be happy." "Thank you, Uncle." As she got out of the car, Nicholas's assistant informed her that Skylar couldn't wait and had already gone upstairs. Haley, holding the card, ascended the stairs, finding the lively atmosphere had returned inside. She went from room to room in search of Skylar, hoping to have a chat after the conversation with Nicholas had placed a heavy burden on her. When she pushed open the door to Skylar's bedroom, the scene before her shocked her. Under the dim lamp, Skylar was kissing a man. When they turned to the side, Haley recognized him. It was Owen. Haley didn't anticipate that her infatuation with Owen would reach a point where even she couldn't comprehend it. Perhaps things become more enchanting when they are unattainable. Due to Owen, Haley intentionally distanced herself from Skylar. When Skylar tried to reach out, Haley always had plenty of excuses, and Skylar didn't seem to mind. Skylar had many gatherings, trips, and friends. Haley never spent a penny from the card given by Nicholas. Only once did she consider buying a trench coat for 580 yuan. When she took out the card, she hesitated while entering the password, her mother's birthday. She believed Nicholas chose it for her convenience, but the password became a barrier. Her mother stood at the door, glaring at her. If her mother refused Nicholas's money before, what did it mean for her to spend his money now? Leaving amidst the disdainful gaze of the salesperson, Haley also felt a sense of relief. As long as she didn't spend Nicholas's money, she would never have to lower her head in front of Skylar. At the end of the semester, Haley returned to Jiangqing after finishing her last exam. Skylar mentioned having hot pot together on the weekend, but Haley wanted to avoid it. She didn't want to know about Skylar and Owen, and she certainly didn't want to sit awkwardly when Skylar swiped her card to pay for the meal. She disliked entering high-end places that didn't match her, and she especially disliked that Skylar never saw the vast gap between them. Haley didn't tell Owen about her return. Since the birthday banquet, their only connection was Haley's longing for him. She speculated about their relationship but lacked the courage to approach him. The second day after returning home, Haley received a WeChat message from Owen, asking if she had booked her train ticket back home. Haley replied that she had some urgent matters and returned early. Owen only responded with an "oh." Her father had worked as the logistics manager with Nicholas's help but was soon dismissed by the new dean due to poor work performance. Now he worked odd jobs, earning just over 2,000 yuan per month. The impact of her mother's suicide on him was evident. Losing the object of his complaints and taunts, he had aged significantly in just a few months, becoming quiet and introverted. Haley avoided contact with him and often kept herself locked in her room. Her window faced Owen's building, and she counted the floors, finding his family's living room. However, apart from a red decoration on the glass window, she couldn't see anything clearly. During the first New Year without her mother, the house didn't feel like a home. Her father put up couplets, hung lanterns, and made dumplings. However, while rolling out dumpling wrappers, he suddenly burst into tears. Haley coldly watched him, put on her coat, and left. In front of the hospital building were a few simple exercise machines. She climbed onto the parallel bars, sat there, and scrolled through her phone. Skylar called on a video call, saying she was skiing with her father in Switzerland and regretting that Haley didn't join them. Haley sneered inwardly. Why not feast on meat and rice? Sometimes rich people were really laughable. After hanging up the call, she suddenly understood. Perhaps she shouldn't have become friends with Skylar again. If she wanted to stay away from her light, why let the wealthy miss exist in her life to provoke her? She sat there, looking at the misty sun and the still lively hospital entrance. From afar, Owen walked out of that door, greeted someone in a white coat, and headed straight to the family building in the backyard. Haley lowered her head to look at her phone, hoping to avoid him. But when she turned back, he was already walking toward her. On New Year's Day, why are you sitting here alone? Just came out for a call. What about you? Delivering lunch to my dad. He's doing several surgeries today. Really tough. The two stood there in silence for a moment. Then I'll go back, Owen said. Haley nodded, feeling a hint of reluctance. How are things between you and Skylar? What do you mean? Aren't you together? It was just a matter of a few days. We haven't been in touch. He lowered his head, scuffing his foot on the ground. She and us are in different worlds now. Before Haley could respond, Owen had already left. A complex and tangled emotion swirled within Haley, mingled with a faint sense of joy. She continued to sit there, watching his figure disappear around the corner. That winter of our junior year, Skylar came to find Haley. At the coffee shop near the school gate, Skylar sipped on an iced Americano, saying she was going to the UK for a school exchange program, with the possibility of pursuing a master's degree directly. Aren't you against going? Zhang Sun is going. It's because he's going for a master's that I'm willing to join this exchange. Who is Zhang Sun? My boyfriend. Oh dear, how long has it been since we met? I've been with Zhang Sun for over 3 months. How come you don't know him? You don't even check my moments. Indeed, Haley had long blocked Skylar's moments. A meal, a piece of clothing, a bag, things that seemed ordinary to her were all triggers for Haley. I've been too busy lately, haven't paid much attention. That's why I thought your responses on WeChat were a bit half-hearted. Skylar seemed excited. Let me show you Zhang Sun's photos. He's incredibly handsome. How could you not know after all the effort I put in to win him over? Haley couldn't see the appeal, but she had to join in the admiration. She patiently listened to Skylar's chattering about her love story, but she couldn't feel her friend's happiness. She must be happy. Haley thought, what else could she not get in this world? What reason did she have not to be happy? On the night before Skylar's departure, she hosted a party at a nightclub, inviting many people, but Haley still didn't attend. Around 11 p.m., a stranger called, saying he was Zhang Sun. He mentioned that Skylar had drunk quite a bit, was crying and calling for Haley, asking if she could come over. The dormitory doors were already closed, so Haley asked her roommate for help to sneak out. Arriving at the nightclub well past midnight, the atmosphere was still lively. However, Haley couldn't find Skylar. She called Zhang Sun, who said Skylar was waiting for her in the car. In a tall chauffeured car, as soon as Haley got in, Skylar hugged her and burst into tears. Her makeup was ruined, making her look like a female ghost. She was dressed lightly, wrapped in a blanket. Haley hugged her, the blanket falling to the ground. Haley took off her own coat and put it on Skylar. In the dim light of the car, Haley used wet wipes to wipe away Skylar's tears. As the makeup lessened, the tears increased. If you don't want to leave, then don't. Why make yourself look like this? My dad is getting married, and I just don't want to see that woman, so I wanted to leave. Haley was shocked. That woman is only in her 20s, a car model who secretly gave birth to a son for my dad. My dad did a paternity test, wants to acknowledge the child, so he's marrying that woman. How could this happen? So, do you know how I've been living all these years? Countless women around my dad, whoever he fancies, he helps. He promised me he wouldn't remarry, but he broke his promise. Haley didn't understand what Nicholas's remarriage meant for Skylar, but she figured it had to do with money, an amount she couldn't fathom. But is there anything I can do to help you? Skylar hugged Haley's neck. Just accompany me. I miss Aunt Ariel. You have her scent on you. On the train back home during the spring festival, Haley told Owen that Skylar had left. Owen forced a smile and said it wasn't surprising, that's how wealthy people are. At that time, their relationship was still good. Sometimes, their messages even carried a hint of flirtation, but neither was willing to break through that delicate barrier. Haley was shy, and Owen seemed unwilling. Owen's father had been promoted to vice dean, while Haley's father had lost his job due to the restructuring of the hospital. Combined with her father's reputation and the fact that he couldn't match Owen even in this small hospital, Haley felt she was not up to Owen's standards. Upon returning home, her father bluntly told Haley that her monthly allowance would be cut by another 200 yuan. He suggested she find a part-time job herself. He also said, while you're young, find a well-off boyfriend in college, get married right after graduation, and you won't have to worry about anything. At the very least, find someone like Owen, his family is well off, and with his computer science major, he'll make good money in the future. Haley laughed heartily. It was indeed something a person with his mindset would say. However, as she laughed, tears couldn't help but flow down. Her mother's photo was placed on the table. It was the first time she missed her mother so much and the first time she deeply empathized with her suicidal thoughts. After graduation, because Owen stayed in Shanghai, Haley decided to stay as well. Owen joined a Fortune Global 500 company, while Haley only found a job in a small company with a staff of a few dozen, earning only a third of Owen's income. On Christmas Eve, Haley brought dinner to Owen, waiting for him outside his company on the cold winter night for 2 hours. On the way to the subway station, Owen held her hand. In less than a year, Haley's company went bankrupt, and she moved in with Owen. Unable to find a suitable job, she gave Owen's parents more reasons to oppose their relationship. In desperation, Haley went to see Nicholas. Nicholas's office was spacious and bright, with a faint view of the Oriental Pearl Tower outside. Nicholas was polite to Haley, and his assistant brought her coffee and snacks. Haley explained her purpose, and Nicholas casually flipped through her resume. I don't need legal services right now, but I'll keep your information. If a suitable opportunity arises, I'll introduce you. Haley almost couldn't believe her ears. She had done her homework before coming. Nicholas's company had over 500 employees, and it wouldn't be difficult to place her there even casually. He could give her a credit card with a monthly limit of 100,000, so why couldn't he offer her a job that paid a few thousand a month? Perhaps everyone in business is this hypocritical. Just like how Nicholas confidently handed her the card, but in 4 years, he had never asked her about it, even though she hadn't spent a penny. At the end of the year, Haley learned from the news that Nicholas had gone bankrupt. Involved in some financial events she couldn't understand, he had been taken away by the police for investigation. Haley called Skylar for a week, but no one answered. She rushed to Skylar's house, but instead, a young mother and a child were living in her Emerald Lake house. After sending numerous WeChat messages to Skylar, she finally received a call in the middle of the night. Skylar said she was waiting for Haley outside the 24-hour convenience store near Haley's rented community. Skylar drove a low-key black Volkswagen, and Haley smelled a strong odor of smoke when she got in. After 2 years of not seeing each other, Skylar had changed again. She had grown her hair long, and her hair color had returned to black. She wore a shirt and a black suit jacket, exuding a mature and capable aura. I've been back for a while, dealing with the company's affairs. She skillfully lit a cigarette, rolled down the car window. The company had problems a long time ago. My dad has been trying to find solutions and had explained everything to me. But the hole was too big. Everything that could be sold was sold. My car was taken away directly by the creditors without any notice. I went to Emerald Lake to find you. That woman told me. My dad divorced her in advance to protect her and the child. I gave her that house too. She doesn't have much money on hand, and she'll have to rely on herself in the future. What about you? First, clean up the mess. As for the future, I dare not think about it. Are you going back to the UK? Applying for a leave of absence. Skylar answered calmly, but Haley felt a heartbreaking sensation. Just like the last time when Skylar said she couldn't stop her father from marrying, this time Haley couldn't do anything either. Everything will be okay, let's take it one step at a time. Haley put her hand on Skylar's shoulder. Skylar turned around, tears dropping with a pat sound. Aunt Ariel told me the same thing. Owen's mother retired and planned to stay in Shanghai for a while. Haley moved in with Skylar. Skylar lived in an apartment adjacent to Nicholas's company. She smoked and mentioned it was the place where her dad used to have affairs with a female subordinate. The house was over 100 square meters but had only one bedroom. Like in their childhood, the two lay on a bed, feeling like they had returned to the past. My dad told me about you going to see him. At that time, his company was already laying off a large number of employees, so it didn't make sense for him to hire you. After you left, he had his assistant check the transactions on your card and found that you hadn't spent a penny. Why? Why what? Why didn't you spend it? That's not my money. You fool. Do you know how much he spent on those women? Much more than what you have? Haley had no words. You have every right to spend Nicholas's money, but you're a big fool. You act all high and mighty in front of us, just like your mom. Haley knew Skylar had been emotionally unstable recently, but she didn't expect her to get so angry and jump off the bed. What's wrong with you? I'm annoyed thinking about how you always act so distant from me. I'm annoyed thinking about your restrained appearance. I'll spend it, is that okay? The card has already been frozen. What's the use of spending it now? Skylar lit a cigarette, and tears rolled down again. I promise you, I won't act distant anymore. We're both born of Aunt Ariel. Skylar stared at Haley for a long time and burst into laughter through tears. After Owen's mother left, Owen didn't mention Haley moving back. I think we're not suitable for each other. You know my family situation. It's impossible to buy a house in Shanghai. My family hopes I can find someone with better conditions, maybe someone we can buy a house together. Okay, I understand. Strangely, Haley didn't feel sad. She saw the shadow of her father in Owen, the same vulgarity and worldliness. A month later, Haley finally found a job. Busy with work every day, she didn't have much energy to savor the pain of a breakup. Time slowly moved forward amid Skylar's struggles. In addition to work, Haley took care of all the housework, cooked for Skylar, and waited for her to come home no matter how late it was. She worried that Skylar's depression would recur and even found relevant books to study. She patiently listened to Skylar talk about those financial and legal terms she couldn't understand, and also listened to her talk about the sadness of the collapsed wall. Skylar occasionally mentioned Aunt Ariel, saying that Aunt Ariel had also accompanied her gently in the past. Several months later, Nicholas's affairs came to an end, and he was released. The woman directly took Nicholas to Emerald Lake, and Haley didn't even get a chance to see him. That night, Skylar cried uncontrollably, and the mountain that had been pressing on her heart finally collapsed. She said she had finally come back to life. We don't have much money left now, Skylar said. Why are you suddenly saying this? Except for the house in Emerald Lake, there's only this one left. Today, I talked to my dad and decided to sell this house. It's a prime location, and we should be able to get a good price. Why do you suddenly want to sell the house? I've set my sights on 2 fully furnished small apartments, 90 square meters each, right across from each other. I'll take you to see them tomorrow. What are you going to do? One for each of us, and we'll still have some money left. I want to go back to the UK to finish my studies. Haley was stunned. You said it yourself, we're both Aunt Ariel's biological children. Skylar smiled through tears. Haley wiped her tears and cried with her head on Skylar's lap. From now on, we're tied together, at least for a while, Skylar said, stroking her hair. Yeah, tied together.